Ah,
Yeah.
there it is.
So YouTube changed their whole interface and everything. So I was wondering, usually we had a few people up by now. I was like, oh, man, nobody's joining. But nobody will join if you don't press go live.
I need to turn all my mute stuff on.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But that should get us live. So
yeah, there it is.
Sweet. Awesome. Let me bring up the sound stuff too. So we don't do any editing either, Adam.
Okay.
I saw a tweet. I was looking at a tweet that said Alex Jones got some DUI or something like that, and I was
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually a big deal.
Apparently that's not a new thing, but I won't go into all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so Adam, we don't edit, and that was kind of the whole preface behind getting on the YouTube is we just wanted to force ourselves to behave as much as we can, and then when we don't behave, we don't behave.
Yeah, it's what it is.
But we're not going to go back behind and edit anything. So, if you don't want to share something that you know that the general public doesn't know, then you just
live.
keep that to yourself.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right. I think we're about ready to roll. Sherwin, you ready?
Yep.
All right, Adam, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Like I said, we'll disappear here for about 90 seconds, but we'll be right back with you. Here we go. Here goes nothing. Recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tug Air Racing Podcast, episode number 234. 234. It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace in the PTM Podcast studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Hey, man, we're about to have a TV star on here with
Woo!
us.
We sure are. We're excited about that. And we're going to get to it quick. Before we do, y'all know what the deal is. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. Go to patreon.com/PTM and join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month. Get that free koozie and some stickers. Best part is every cent this year, we're once again donating to sponsored drivers. So join the PTM Posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. Here we go. Aaron Bearden, Robert Keplinger, Coleman McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brennan Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Rika Porter, John Bob Les Miller, Julie Bosley, John Pearson, Eddie Greer III, Younger Motorsports, David Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Crystal Smoke, Fred Rosado, Chad Knapp, Stacey Coleman, Matthew Camper, Lisa Chanana, Rick Houston, Sarah and Barry, Evan Roller, and Brad Harrison. Woo! Woo! Got her done. All right. One breather. Dude, tonight's guest, he's a host and play-by-play announcer for SFS1. You saw him earlier tonight on Race Hub, and now he's made a vast upgrade to join the fellas at the PTM Podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Adam1Alexander. It's Adam Alexander. What's up, Adam?
Hey, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be so much fun. It's great to have you on. It's I would say it's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, but it's absolutely horrific. So,
just work on that for the weekend. Okay,
what,
no offense to anyone in Atlanta, but we need it good for the weekend. I'm not worried about today. You know what I mean?
We're doing all our dances and everything else. We have a history of bringing rain to the racetrack. We brought rain to Phoenix last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, when it rained in the Xfinity
Well, a year
race.
and a half ago.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. So
well, we just had Spring Phoenix, so I guess it was 2 years ago.
Yep. So, we'll do what we can do. But I tell you what, if it does start raining, just stick with us. We also have a pretty good track record of it, coming back around, especially at Atlanta.
Cycling back through.
Yeah, them.
We had the Monsapis like during a tweet up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got it cleaned up, and we went to racing.
Yep, I think also 2 years ago, as it turns out. Adam, we start the show off the same way every time, and we ask our guest what they're drinking tonight.
So I actually just took the final drink of a little coffee. So that's what I was having tonight. That shows you how exciting my life is.
He's staying up to talk to the
That's pretty
PTM
normal
boys.
for me.
Well, sir, we've been on this kick for a little while. Me and Sherwin both trying to shed some LBs, if you will. So we're rocking the waters again. It would have been a much different story, 6 months ago. But here we are trying to be adults for once in our life.
Well, if Chase wins on If Chase wins anything this weekend, Tuesday is going to be on like Kong.
All right. Yeah, we'll go back to our old school stuff. Adam, we've got lots of NASCAR to talk about, but first we got to hit the important stuff. Get the what have yous out of the way. And the first one is you had a cameo in Logan Lucky, and we want to know all about that.
Wow, that's funny. I never would have guessed that we would get there tonight. And it's funny that you bring that up because I don't remember the movie, but we were on set tonight and getting ready to do the show, and Brad Keselowski was on with us, and he, too, was in that Logan Lucky movie. He had a much more prominent role than I did. But anyway, he was talking about the director of the movie and some of the movie that he had produced and directed. And so that movie actually came up on set tonight, and it's the first time I had thought of that or it had come up in quite some time. So I don't know exactly what role or what the agreement was, but there was some agreement between the production group of Logan Lucky and Fox Sports because it was obviously based on NASCAR. It was going to be, in and around the Charlotte area. We had studios here. We had people that were out at the racetrack that weekend. And so all those heads were put together, and somehow there was some work done to utilize resources and save money. And that was not what I would call a low-budget film, but I think it was done very financially responsibly based on what my knowledge is of the production of it. And I don't have great knowledge of the production. But because of the connection to Fox Sports, they wanted to utilize our building and utilize our studio for the shot that we did. And so they asked us to be a part of that, and they wanted it to be the Daily Show, Race Hub, that was the backdrop for the news scene that they used in the movie. And so we came in, and, it's funny, there were a lot of conversations about wardrobe and, who would be involved in making all those selections. And quite honestly, we shot our bit on a day off for the show. And it was a day off for our show, I should say. So I went in just to shoot the Logan Lucky deal, and we thought it was going to be this huge production and an all-day thing. And we went in, and I don't think we were in the studio 10 minutes. I mean, we went in and did the piece they wanted. They said we got what we need, and we went on down the line. And so it was the easiest thing I've ever been a part of. And honestly, it doesn't even feel like I was a part of a movie shoot because it was so much along the lines of what I do on a daily basis. It really just felt natural, other than I was reading, their lines instead of ours. But that's how it went. And I will tell you this funny story. So the movie's coming out. And I've never been in a movie, and quite honestly, I didn't know, how much of what we did they would use in this movie, or if they would use any at all. You hear about how they shoot scenes, and then those don't make the final cut. And so my wife and my family, they're all excited, and so my wife wants to do this big thing and go to the movie with other people, and I'm like, nah, I'm not into that. Like, I'd rather kind of know how this is going to go before we get other people involved. So we invited one other family. And we went and had a big dinner, and then we went to the movie. And quite honestly, obviously you'd have to know exactly what you were looking for to even see me a part of it. And it was, it was funny. We all got a real kick out of it, and it was neat to say you were a part of it and see your name in the credits. But it was way different than what I anticipated it would be.
Man,
did you study up on Dr. Jerry Punch's role in Days of Thunder to sort of get a feel for how you should do it?
No, I mean, it was, there was just not, I think I do remember that we emailed some scripts and that kind of thing. And, the best part of it, and there was, financially, this is not a big deal. I mean, I can just tell you, I don't remember what the numbers were, and not that I would share them or anything like that. But I mean, it was not a lot of money to be in the movie. You're just basically like an extra. Mm-hmm. But there are these residuals, and because of what I do at Fox and the contract I have and whatever, I qualify to be a part of. Mainly because you can get some good health care benefits through them and all that stuff. So I've signed up and been a part of that, and it's a great benefit to be able to do that. And it just, there's some dividends on the other side in regard to retirement and also health care. So it's great. But you also, when you're a SAG member, that helps you when you do this movie thing, and there's, residuals on these movies. and I get checks. Like I got one not real long ago. It's like $18. You know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing. I mean, I can't even feed my family dinner on the checks that they send once or twice a year. But it does remind you that the movie must be playing somewhere or getting some hits somewhere, because, you know, every once in a while, someone at my level, which is about as far down the chain as you can go, is still getting a little kickback on it. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's got to be fun. Walk into the bank. Yeah, this is my movie star check. I've made it.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what. I kept all the paperwork that they sent me originally, as far as scripts and some of that stuff, because what's neat about it is it lists all the actors that are in the movie, and so you know, Channing Tatum was the biggest name. And so to be on that script and see all those names together, that is kind of cool, I guess. And I'm sure as I get older and look back, I mean, it'll get better and better as you reflect back on some of the things you've been able to be a part of. But I also keep those check stubs, even though the numbers aren't big financially. It's just kind of neat to see, you know, the breakdown and knowing that you got to be a part of that. So that I don't think about that often. But I appreciate you guys bringing it up, and it's certainly a neat memory for me.
Well, you don't think like Brad Kay really drove the needle with his amazing performance in Sharknado?
Yeah, that's a good one. I remember Brad was coming on Race Up when that was out and hot, and I remember teasing him about that. So, and you know what's great for, I think, so many drivers and just anyone in the NASCAR community. When you do, you know, what we all do, regardless of what you're doing, you just get to do some things and put yourself in some positions that you probably just never thought you would be in. And, you know, Clint Boyer was on last night, and I've spent a decent amount of time with Clint lately, just because of the work that he's doing for Fox, and, you know, his kind of new agreement with us. And I've gotten to know Clint a little better. And it's neat because when you're around people enough, you can't help but hear their experiences away from what we all know them as athletes and race car drivers. And you know, it's become apparent to me, and I've learned this from Brad too, you know, everybody has a place that they come from. And we tend to see them as superstars, and I think that takes away the human element a little bit. And when you get to be around the guys behind the scenes, and last night Clint was in, and he's talking about things on the farm and the different stuff that he's got going on in his life away from the racetrack. And it just reminds you of Clint's always going to be a kid from Kansas. Regardless of what he accomplishes as a race car driver, he's always going to be the guy that grew up in Kansas on the farm and doing country things. And it's really refreshing to see those flashes of their roots. And I was with Brad last year when he went back home to Michigan and did his foundation event. And you realize everybody has a place that they come from. They have a foundation of which their life was laid. And so to get to see all the experiences that these guys are having now, and then get to be around them when they're reflecting back on who they really are and where they come from, it's kind of neat to see all the dots connect.
So my wife, funny story, and Sherwin both know that, like, I'm garbage when it comes to movies and actors and actresses and stuff. So it was a few months ago, and she was telling me, she said something about Adam Driver, and I'm like, who? And she goes, you know, he was in that TV show Girls, and I'm like, no. And she goes, Kylo Ren in Star Wars? I'm like, not really a Star Wars guy. And she goes, she kind of hangs her head, and she goes, the guy without the arm in Logan Lucky. I'm like, oh, yeah, Adam Driver. Yeah. You should have said so.
Yeah. Oh, and he had that
he was the other Adam in the movie. You know,
that's
he
right.
was the other Adam.
Yeah. Billed as
well,
Adam
he was Adam too.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Right. That's right.
But he had that great commercial where he did it's not a Make-A-Wish Foundation, but it's one of those kind of things where they did a whole commercial where he's driving and like he meets the little girl that like has survived cancer or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And her dream was to meet Adam Driver, and like he meets the whole family and stuff. It was really cool.
Oh, that's nice. That's awesome. He seems like a cool guy.
He was a Marine.
He was a Marine, and then just decided to do acting, and next thing you know, he's like the biggest baddie in Star Wars. Like, geez, all right, have you one. Adam won. I should make sure I specify here. You you grew up in Indy, so what was it like as a youngster around the Speedway, in the town?
It's funny. I grew up in Indianapolis, and I was actually born in southern Indiana before we moved to Indy, and I moved up there like 10 or 12 or whatever. So, my formative years and what I remember and where I went to high school and all those things was certainly, centered around Indianapolis. But, when you grow up in Indiana, there's a lot of stick and ball sports. And at that time, it was all about basketball. And so I grew up in a basketball family, and I was a fan of all sports, but in particular basketball and football. And I liked racing just because I lived in Indy, and during the month of May, you could not escape the Indy 500 because when I was growing up, middle school, high school, even into college, that was when the Indy 500 was the thing. And I went to the Indy 500 one time as a kid and sold newspapers before the race. My mom and dad, we lived in a very tight household financially. My mom and dad had a paper route to help make ends meet when I was a kid growing up. And so through their connection delivering papers with the Indianapolis Star, they had an opportunity to get me down to sell papers at the racetrack, and I did that one time. And I was in and out before the race even began. And so I really had never experienced the Indianapolis 500. Now, you can't watch it on TV in Indianapolis because it's blacked out. And so we would always listen to it. And I remember there was a girl that I dated in high school that her family had tickets, and it was her thing with her dad every year. And I can remember Memorial Day weekend sitting around a pool in our apartment complex and listening to the race. And then knowing that night I would go to her house to see her and connect with her family, and I'd get to hear the stories about their experience at the Indy 500. But the first Indianapolis 500 I ever attended and really was a part of was in 2001, and I was actually working pit road for the IMS radio network. So I didn't grow up on it. I knew of it. I followed it, was a fan of the 500 just because you had to be if you were in Indianapolis. But I was not brought up on racing and really did not get into it until I was an adult and really out working in the media world.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Well, and you got to go back and cover it in your own backyard, right?
Yeah, well, it was pretty funny because I worked locally in Indiana in Evansville for a number of years, a small TV market in southern Indiana. And I was getting out of local television and starting to work for MRN Radio. And it was my first ever event for MRN. It was a truck race at Texas in 2000 when IndyCar was there with them. And I ran into Mike King, who was the voice of the Indy 500 at the time. And I had interned with Mike when I was in college. And he was just dumbfounded, could not believe that I was there working with MRN. Now, truth be known, I had never done a race for MRN. But because he saw me there and associated me with MRN, I just immediately went way up in the way he viewed me as a broadcaster because he knew the reputation of MRN Radio. And I remember I had never called a race on the radio, and he said to me, "You work for MRN?" And I said, "Absolutely." I just sold it as big as I could. And he said, "We want local voices on the Indy 500. Would you be interested in coming back and working the Indy 500? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't even worked my first race for MRN, and already it's getting me a gig with, the IMS radio network to do the Indy 500. And so I told him I would, and before you know it, he has signed me up, and I'm going back and working the Indy 500. So that was, you talk about dumb luck. That's exactly what all that was. But boy, was it special to be a part of that after having, grown up in Indy and listening to the race on the radio all those years.
So you hadn't done a race yet with MRN, but you already get the Indy 500. The first thought comes to your mind is, I'm going to be a movie star one day at this rate.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, who knew, right?
Well, one thing I'll say, Adam, and just kind of, we like to veer off into different veins that aren't necessarily racing, but one of the funny things, or at least funny to me, about meeting some folks from Indy, because we got a good friend named Brett Morris who grew up outside of Indianapolis, and now we getting a chance to talk to you. And I've always said Evansville was North Kentucky, and I've had people get really mad at me who are from Evansville, because they don't want to be considered North Kentucky. But you sound like you're from the South, and like we always sort of considered Indiana to be like Yankees. But you don't. I mean, you have, like, now that you've relaxed and you're talking to us, and you're not on television. You fit right in here in Atlanta. Nobody would know any different.
Well, what's really funny about that is, so that I was born in Madison, Indiana, which is a small river town on the Ohio River in the Louisville, Kentucky area, basically. I mean, if you wanted a city to identify with, Louisville would be the closest city, kind of between Louisville, Cincinnati, like that region of the country. But Madison, Indiana, right on the Ohio River is where I was born. And then Hanover, Indiana, which is a neighboring town in the same county is where I grew up, and that's where a good portion of my family lives now. And when we moved from there to Indianapolis in whatever year it was, 1985, 86, somewhere in that neighborhood, I was, 11, 12 years old. And I remember at that time when we got to Indy, everyone asked me where I was from. And it's like, you're from Indiana? Like, they couldn't believe it, And so then I'm in Indianapolis, and I can't drop this, Southern drawl or whatever. And then I go to Evansville, and I'm working in Evansville. And for a period of time, my wife and I lived in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is basically the same market. I mean, it's 30 minutes away, the two cities are 30 minutes apart, Evansville
and
Owensboro.
A driver from one to the other.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy commute, right? I mean, it's just an easy drive. And so all of that, I mean, I have spent a lot of time, even like you said, like in North Kentucky, and I know that there are many Hoosiers that would be offended by that, but quite honestly, I mean, in Indiana, if you're south of Interstate 70, which basically runs east and west through the center of the state and through Indianapolis, you don't get recognized as like the rest of the state does. I mean, it's just a different thought process and a different mentality in that part of the state. And so, that's kind of where my roots are, where my foundation is.
Yeah. Well, in our tradition of just jumping all over the place, your job is in consumption of sports, right? And so now we have, of course, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and podcasts and smart devices and the PTM podcast specifically. But I'm wondering, have you given thought, and what are your thoughts on what's next and how we're interacting and watching, I guess, any sports, but especially NASCAR, and what are y'all doing right now to elevate that?
Well, I think that's a great question. And, it was interesting. The PGA Tour just signed a new media rights agreement, and they've signed on with CBS and NBC and Golf Channel, which are the networks that you see primarily covering now. And I haven't read the complete details of it, but I did read that ESPN 3 has signed the digital rights agreement for PGA Tour coverage. Now, what are the details of all that? I don't know. But the fact that you've got an entity like ESPN, who is not connected to NBC or CBS, obviously, that is signed up for the media for the digital rights, and the digital rights are not just an extension of what the rights are for CBS and NBC on the broadcast side, I think is an indication of what digital rights mean and what they're valued at, and the fact that they're being sold separately. And so as we look to the next generation of NASCAR media rights, it will be very interesting to me to see what they do and who is involved in the negotiation process. I have a hard time believing this is year one of 5 years remaining on the current media rights deal and broadcast rights deal for NASCAR. I have a hard time believing that there aren't going to be races broadcast on national television or cable television in the next deal. But I also think you would be pretty naive to think that we will not see some of that done on some social platform or digital, or some races maybe even exclusively broadcast digitally, just because of where the audience is and how people are consuming it. And the other thing that I think is happening is it's changing so rapidly now that it makes it very difficult to predict, where we will be in 5 years, or maybe in 3 years more likely, when this next deal is being negotiated. But I do think you'll see a different layout than what you've seen in the past. And whether NASCAR keeps that in-house and does it, through NASCAR.com, or it's an Amazon, or it's an Apple TV, who knows where it may be picked up. But I think you're going to see something different than what we've witnessed here in recent years.
Well, that's interesting. I guess I'm not at all shocked that ESPN would be the one to jump on that .com streaming service, considering they've owned the assets that are the first 2 days of the Masters for probably about 5 years now, maybe more than that. But it will be. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting when people start part and parceling their television consumption outlets.
Sure.
NASCAR is going to have to adjust.
Yeah, and NASCAR has an opportunity to do a whole lot here, because with digital you can just deliver so much more content at the same time. And one thing that NASCAR has is a lot of numbers. Like, just throw numbers at me on the screen, and I'm a happy guy.
Well, you can remember, you never had DirecTV, but DirecTV used to have 4 channels where they basically just played, they played the video feed from the driver's car, and then they, not closed caption, but like picture in the picture, the actual race itself. But they played the driver's audio, and they didn't edit it.
Yeah,
because NASCAR fans don't care if you cuss.
Yeah, every once in a while.
We're used to it. We know what's going to happen.
So, Adam, in a perfect world, Adam Alexander is president of TV. I just made that up as a title. So you are now president of TV. What addition are you going to make next season for NASCAR to drive the folks toward you, or just enhance the experience?
Well, I think that, the most difficult thing, and if there would be anything that you would say makes NASCAR unattractive from the TV network side, it's just the cost to produce it. And I think there's so many positives to NASCAR, but it is a very difficult sport for television just because of the enormous expense. If you look at our TV compound on a weekly basis at the racetrack, it compares to what you would have for a Super Bowl. And we all know the magnitude of the Super Bowl and what that means in the TV landscape. So if you imagine the resources that are being put into a TV broadcast in NASCAR, and that's being done on a weekly basis, I think that speaks to what the cost is. And so for us, I think that the thing that we need to do and that NASCAR needs to do is we work together as partners. And that's the terminology that is used when NASCAR refers to Fox and NBC, our broadcast partners. I think you have to work together to put some mandates on the competitors for in-car cameras, any technology enhancement that can be incorporated into the competition that will not only, serve the need maybe for the teams, because it gives them, some form of content that they can use, whether it's for their own entertainment on their social channels to drive traffic there, or it can be used to gain some sort of a competitive advantage, watching tape back or whatever the case may be for drivers, crew chief, spotters, whatever. But then on the other side would be a tremendous broadcast enhancement for those of us that are putting the event on. We put in-car cameras in, but it's a massive expense. And you have to have teams that agree to do that. And sometimes, whether it's weight restrictions or it's proprietary and you don't want people to see what you're doing, teams won't let you do it. And then if you don't have a sponsor that's going to push a team, then you're not going to get an in-car camera. And I think our broadcast coverage loses, and I think the fans at home lose. And so I think there's a huge upside to what we can do from a broadcast standpoint, but it's all managing cost. And if we can kind of absorb those costs together, I think we would benefit greatly, not only on our side, but the competitors and ultimately the fans would see a much better product on television. So I think that's the deal, working together to enhance what we're seeing and at the same time limit costs, which is always going to be pretty massive when you look at producing a NASCAR event.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, and I'll take this into basically what I think is the same vein of that, understanding what cost of content is we all the way back in 2004, 2005, we had the ghost car thing during qualifying, and that was a speed thing, which is now a Fox asset. Like, why did it take us so long for it to come back? Because it is such a good product.
Well, I think it's partnerships with the various technology outlets, and SMT is someone that we work with now, and you hear the teams reference that, and there's several layers of cost, and then I think the other thing is, different people have different philosophies on what's important from a broadcast standpoint. And the ghost car can do some great things. And it's a tremendous element, I think, in qualifying because of what you can show and the comparisons you can make between one car in qualifying and another. I think that if you have a producer that doesn't totally endorse it and it's an expensive product and you can better spend that money someplace else, there are some decisions to be made. I'm not in those meetings. I couldn't tell you exactly, why it's come and gone and it's back again. But I would say typically when you have a technology element like that maybe goes away for a period of time and then makes its return, it's somehow related to cost and budget and how our folks have decided to, utilize the money they have to, pick up the various, levels of technology to put the good broadcast on the air.
Well, thank you, sir, for that. And with that, we're going to go straight into the teardown with the report card. First period, Sherwin. Joey Logano collecting that second trophy this year in what was a darn good race. NASCAR finally feeling like we're getting it right on the package, and it's a shame that we're going to a brand new package.
Well, the tires too. Let's give Goodyear some credit.
There we go. So break it down for us. And by the way, Phoenix finale. They're on a glide path for selling out pretty easily. It sounds like so. Folks are responding well to it.
Yeah, I don't think they'll have any trouble selling out. I think what we saw is exactly what we would want to see. Is despite the fact that some people will be upset with calling Phoenix a 1 mile track a short track. What we saw was a short track style of race where tires absolutely mattered, line mattered, changing lines mattered, running into guys mattered. We had everything.
Yeah. Adam, your thoughts?
Well, I thought that, all the stars aligned, and I thought it was a great race. I enjoyed what we saw on Saturday. And I was in the booth calling that Xfinity race with Joey Logano and Clint Boyer, and you could just feel, the excitement, anticipation for them to go out and race on Sunday, knowing that the track was in a good place, and we certainly saw that. And I think you guys touched on it. The changes that NASCAR made to this short track setup for 2020 had everyone feeling like and encouraged by. What they had seen and what the numbers had produced, and then to see it deliver like it did on track at a place like Phoenix, which quite honestly might be the biggest challenge of all when you look at those tracks 1 mile in length and less where we're going to run this particular platform. And, I think the other contributing factor, and you guys talked about this, is the tire fall off. I think a lot of credit has to go to Goodyear, and to me, one of the great ways to improve racing and to make it more competitive is the tire. And the fact that teams had to manage their sets, I think that was a huge factor, especially late in that race when you had to figure out the best time to come and get them and what would the payoff be when you had fresher tires. So I think tires is something that can make a huge difference, not just in the way they fall off, but especially when teams are put in a situation where there's a lot of cautions and you got to figure out how to utilize the allotment that you have. And the other thing is the traction compound. They put that traction compound down in November in Phoenix, and they put it too high, and it just didn't work out. And drivers were pretty vocal about where it needed to be. NASCAR listened, And I think when you put all three of those things together, it equals great success. And I think now, there's always going to be hype when there's a championship to go for. But I think now, regardless of who the four drivers are and what the storylines may be, we truly can go to Phoenix in the fall with tremendous anticipation because of what we saw there on Sunday.
Well, and they, props to NASCAR for using what they learned on Saturday, because they walked in turns, was it 1 and 2? I think it's 1 and 2, the old 3 and 4. They walked the grip boogers down about 8 feet, got them closer to the bottom so that they could get into them sooner. And I thought we saw a great race.
I like what you said about learning from one day to the next and putting that in the bank of things to do next time or on the next track or something. And I think they've done that a few times, like the VHT and the whatever else we call it.
Well, PJ1 VHT,
PJ1
same
VHC,
thing,
all that.
But what it is it's drag racing boogers.
Yeah.
And it works for NASCAR now.
And Adam, so you've talked to, you said you were talking with Clint Boyer, and of course all 4 SHR cars in the top 9. So that team's got to feel good. How's the vibe from SHR right now?
Well, I think it's really good, and I think the most encouraging thing for them, and really all those 4 teams. I mean, if you look at it, 5 of the top 10 in the race at Phoenix were Fords. Joey wins. They had 3 of the top 5. You mentioned the success of the Stewart-Haas cars. Brad Keselowski was leading late on some restarts, and depending on how the strategy played out and how everyone utilized their tires, and when the cautions fell, he could have been the driver we were talking about as the winner. He ended up finishing 11th, and Ryan Blaney, he never factored in to the race on Sunday because he was crashed out early when he got involved in that deal with Denny Hamlin. But the reality is that, he had a fast race car in practice too, and you would anticipate that he would have been someone that could have been a contender, if not being taken out. And Brad Keselowski told us that when they came up with this new Ford Mustang prior to 2019, at the end of 2018, that it was set up for what we ran on Sunday. And they never felt like a year ago they got the fruits of their labor on that new car because of the route that NASCAR went with the new aero package that was introduced for 2019. And now that they have reversed course and changed what they're running at the short tracks, this could really play into Ford's hands. Phoenix is unique, and it's different, and it encompasses not just that short track mentality and feel, but you also have speed and aerodynamics. And so I don't know how much you read into Phoenix and what that will mean at the other short tracks, Bristol and Richmond and Martinsville and so on. But if what Brad is saying is true, and the results we saw on Sunday are an indicator, you would think that Ford's got a great shot, not only throughout the regular season, but in particular in the postseason, because half of the playoff tracks will be with that aero configuration that we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I think right now I think it's pretty safe to say that Ford and Chevy are advantaged over Toyota as we go forward.
Yeah, and I would say this too. The Toyota thing's a little bit hard to evaluate right now, and this is something we've talked about, and I think the jury's still out. But Andy Petrie said this. They won 19 races last year, and if that's where you set the bar for success, there's probably going to be a lot of disappointment. But the reality is that Denny Hamlin won the Daytona 500. They've had some misfortune in the inspection line and engine changes and that kind of thing, and so they've had a lot of cars that had to start the back in these races. Kyle Busch has been second and third the last 2 weeks. Martin Truex Jr. has probably had the fastest car, even though they've had all kinds of bad luck and can't get out of their own way. He's passed a lot of cars. And Denny Hamlin, I think, had a pretty good car in Phoenix before wrecking early. So I'm not here to apologize for Toyota, but I do think that, you have to pump the brakes this time of year because we are all guilty in mid-March, early April of trying to figure out who the championship favorite is. And if you go back to last year, Penske won a lot early and didn't win it all late other than Ryan Blaney nipping Ryan Newman at Talladega. and didn't put anybody in the championship 4. And so I think, that there will be some give and take, and it's just a matter of time before, everybody gets their program figured out and starts putting their cars in position to win races.
I got to erase the rest of the show notes because I was going to
Yeah,
ask who was going to win the championship.
Yeah, that ebb and flow happens, though. I mean, we remember when Hendrick won 18 races. I think it was 2008. Jeff won 6. Jimmy won 10, won the championship, and Junior won a race, and I think Casey got that Casey Mears got that, gas mileage win at the 600. And then, they were almost sort of absent the next year, except for Jimmy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you can't hold, only right now can you hold Jimmy down. You couldn't hold him down then.
I'll skip around the notes here a little bit, though. We have, because I want to hear Adam's perspective on a couple things. We got our first taste of the Trucks Bounty this weekend. The excitement that this is drummed up and everything. I mean, and the fact that it was just natural, happened as part of like a Twitter trolling session, or if you will. But Adam, I got to ask you, Kyle Busch or the field?
Well, Chase Elliott would be a great story, right? Especially there at Atlanta. But it's hard for me to imagine. Kyle runs these trucks so often, and he just is so comfortable. And especially at Atlanta, I mean, he's had a lot of success. So I right now would go the route of Kyle. I think the one place he could be compromised is at Homestead with Kyle Larson. You just look at how good Larson is at running that place. And so that's where I think the real challenge will come. But all things being conventional, and if Busch doesn't have any issues, if I were going to put my money somewhere, I'd put it on Kyle Busch this weekend.
With as much
fair, very fair,
and with how competitive he is and how much he wants to win, I wonder, for the sake of the $100,000, how much more than $100,000 he's put into the truck to make double sure.
Well, think about the fact that if he does win it, it's going to go to Bundles of Love.
Yeah, and if he doesn't win it, somebody else is going to,
they're going to give it to something awesome.
Which is,
cool. They're not going to just walk home with a suitcase full of money. They're going to.
I might start with that. I might start with, hey, Kyle Busch's money.
I guess if you're Brennan Poole, you might. But we all know there's no chance he's going to win. But he can't even win anyway.
It's cool seeing people participate, I guess. I'll give a participation trophy on this one.
Yeah.
Adam?
It would have been a huge deflation if Kevin makes this announcement and puts this challenge out there, and Marcos Lemonis piles on, and now we got $100,000 hanging in the balance, and you couldn't get Cup drivers to come down and run and compete against Kyle. Mm-hmm. And you won't find anybody in that garage that doesn't respect Kyle and what he does and what he means to the sport. So I think all those Cup competitors really respect Kyle. And so now to see this happen, I think it's great for the series. It's putting a spotlight not only on the guys that are doing this, but I think it further enhances the notoriety of the young drivers that are there running for a championship. And it also allows them to get an even better baseline on where they are with the program. And I know people don't like to hear that, but after Chase Briscoe won the Xfinity race at Las Vegas, I saw Joe Custer, who is, I don't know what his title is, vice president of competition or whatever it is, at Stewart-Haas Racing, and I congratulated him. It's a really good win for Chase. And his comeback was, when do the Cup drivers show up? Because that's when we'll figure out how good our program is, because we have to have them as a measuring stick. And so I think, all of these teams realize that when Kyle's in the field or Kevin's in the field or Brad or Joey or Chase or whoever it is, that's your opportunity to figure out where your program is. And I think a lot of knowledge will be gained this weekend, in addition to the fact that we're going to have a tremendous sideshow, maybe the best ever, with the Bounty and seeing if one of these Cup regulars can go down and beat Kyle Busch.
Yeah, well, I don't remember anybody being pissed when Mark Martin was running trucks.
True.
Yeah, right.
Fellas, William
I'd
Byron
like to see him
wrecking.
come back and run full time now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got.
I wish he would.
I wore my Sterling Marlin shirt yesterday. Matter of fact, William Byron reckon in that next gen car in testing, and he's saying that it's pretty tough to drive. Like, and almost, I'm not saying he's complaining. It was just more of like a, whew, that's a tough car to drive, and that was one of the hardest hits I've ever had. And
I thought he said he didn't hit anything.
It was I thought it was one of the hardest wrecks or whatever. He was saying it was
maybe hardest to drive out of it,
or maybe
he tweeted out that he didn't hit anything.
Okay.
Somebody was giving him a hard time.
Maybe I missed.
And I think it was
part.
Clint, or it was either Clint or Austin that said, "Yeah, I did that too," and they said I wrecked it, but I didn't hit anything either.
I got you. So my point here being that my point here being that. We want to see the drivers have a difficult time with the car, but we also don't want to see something stupid like we're just going to do reverse steering from now on. That makes it just hard to drive for the sake of being hard to drive. Where is that line that we want to see? Do we think we're getting there with this next gen car, or are we getting closer to reverse steer? Adam, what do you think?
I don't know. I think it's still pretty early. I know Clint's going to stay over at Atlanta and test it again on Monday and Tuesday, next week if weather permits. So we'll have another, bit of technology and another bit of data to look back on in regard to the test at Atlanta when Clint goes down. To confirm what happened with William, he spun out on the first day of the test and didn't hit anything. He did spin out the second day of the test and hit something, and that's the one that everyone was talking about. So there were two different incidents. So you guys were kind of both accurate on that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to know a lot about this car until we start putting multiple cars on track in the summer. And I've always thought that about practice. Like, we go out and practice and we do 100 single car runs, and it's like, well, my car's a little loose, or my car's a little tight, well, it won't turn in the center, well, whatever. And the reality is, how would you know anyway until you get out there with 30 other cars or 40 or whatever the car count is for a particular race? So I think it's difficult. I'm sure they're gathering great data and information. I'm not saying they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I just think it is very difficult right now to get a gauge on where that car is and what it needs or doesn't need, or what's going to create success in the future, until we put a handful of them out there together.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I appreciate the gentlemanly response that, Rusty Sherman, you were both kind of right, but you're well within your rights on this show to say that we were both wrong and correct us.
I wouldn't do that.
We will eat the crow with it. Well, we want to get you out of here. We appreciate all the time. I got two more questions, though. Hopefully quickies here. CJ Walliver asks, Adam, who convinced you to get on Twitter?
Was it what? But I hope CJ's not asking because I'm supposed to say it was him. Maybe it was CJ. Heck, I can't remember really. I just remember thinking they're going to make me do this eventually, so maybe I should go ahead and do it before they tell me I've got to do it. I don't. CJ would know. I don't do a very good job with social media. I'm trying to get better at that, but I can't. I don't have a one defining moment that I remember where someone said to me, I could be wrong, maybe I've forgotten, but I certainly don't recall a one defining moment where someone said, you've got to do this. I can tell you when I got on the Instagram, sometime last summer or spring, my kids were just astounded that I was on Instagram, and they pile on every time they think I misuse it. So I'm like 46. I'm 46 going on about 75 when it comes to social media.
Well, I hear you on that when it comes to Instagram. I haven't, I'm 37 and haven't really understood quite yet what I'm supposed to do. Like, where do I do that? Where do I
put my hands?
Yeah. So maybe your kids need to come over and give me a lesson or two at some point. Adam, last question for you. We got to ask before we roll out. Atlanta's coming up, and we have to get a pick from our guest every week. So if you can give us who you think in the Cup Series is going to come away with that checker flag.
That's a great one. I think I would go Kevin Harvick. I like what I've seen out of Kevin this year. I think that, they obviously haven't won, but he's been consistent with top 10 finishes every week. And Atlanta's been a place where he's been really, really good. And I feel like it's a matter of time before he goes out and gets it done. So I probably right now would pick Harvick. I do think, though, it's just so early in the year, and I think it's hard right now going into each weekend to pick a favorite. And even though we've been to some intermediate tracks in Las Vegas and in California that you would think would give us a little bit of a baseline on what to expect at Atlanta, I just feel like Atlanta's such a unique place with the tire fall off and how worn out that surface is that it's tough for me to figure out, which way to go. But right now, Tuesday, I'd probably say Kevin Harvick, and if you talk to me after practice on Friday, that'll change, and after qualifying Saturday, it may change again.
Well, he's the only one that can continue to hook the bottom line in 1 and 2 throughout the wear of the tire. So unless Goodyear brings a different tire, I think you've made a fantastic pick because he just knows how to drive Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like he just does it different, you know?
I think 2 years ago when he just ran away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to run away with it this year because we're going to be running that, for lack of a better word, that restrictor plate package.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's going to be a little weirder, and the tire is probably not going to wear out the same way. But that's a good pick. I think one of the things that people miss out on when they say cookie cutter is how much different Atlanta actually is than Charlotte and Texas.
And I was thinking that earlier too, where we talk about cookie cutter, but then you look at each of the tracks and there's some snowflakes in there. Atlanta being certainly one of them. Adam, we want to make sure we get you out on a good note, and you're not sitting there cussing us out for keeping you on for so long. But we really appreciate you being on, and it's been a blast talking with you. What's coming up for you, and where can the folks find you on the social media and on the Instagram?
Yeah, I'll be back on the air NASCAR Race Up on Wednesday at 6, and then be on at the track from Atlanta Friday doing Xfinity practice, qualifying, and racing on Saturday, and a part of the Fox pre-race on Sunday for the Cup race. So that's where you can see me on the air. And on social media, both Instagram and Twitter, is Adam, the numeral 1, Alexander. So appreciate the follows and the comments from the fans, and look forward to interacting with everybody there and seeing them at the track this weekend.
Well, maybe we'll get to see you when you have a break, because we'll be in the garage on all weekend.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
We'll give you the old,
I'll be around. If you see me, please track me down and say hello.
Right on, brother. Appreciate you being on. We'll look forward to we'll do our rain dances and stuff, and look forward to a dry weekend this weekend for the Atlanta Motor Speedway race. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you, Adam.
Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. We've got a little bit more show for you, but how about that? Adam Alexander, awesome dude. So much fun to talk to.
Yeah, it gave us like 50 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know if he gave it to us or if we took it, but
we might have taken it. But you got to take it sometimes.
Appreciate him being a good sport. Sure, and I want to talk about a few more things. Xfinity race. Brandon Jones passes Kyle Busch with 20 to go for the win. That was
awesome.
Neat. You think because who was it? That Jones boy that did that at one point. And,
the Eric, the one that spells his name with the wrong letter.
And so, Kyle Busch noticed then. I wonder if, he's noticing. I mean, Brandon Jones doesn't necessarily need to be noticed at this point in his career, but that's an interesting
Well,
ordeal.
It's win number 2, and we talk about win number 2 being like sort of that validation, except for when you're Stenhouse and it comes at restrictor plate races, because he still wrecks everything he gets in, but including at Phoenix a couple of times. But, like, he won a real race. He won at Phoenix. Like, you don't accidentally win at Phoenix.
Right, exactly.
You don't accidentally pass Kyle Busch.
For the win at Phoenix with 20 to go. No, you don't. Big story at the end of that race, though. Dylan Bassett going after Brandon Brown. That was a little
It was a little excessive.
It was excessive in terms of This was like 100 laps ago.
And they were racing for 34th. and then no offense to Brandon Brown, because we've had him on our show, and we like Brandon. But, like, it was 100 laps to go, and, like, you're so mad. You run over and you got to hit a guy who's still buckled into his seat.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, other than Dylan Bassett is not a name that I think is a household name. I probably wouldn't have.
When your car is that bad and you're not a good racer, that's not the behavior you should exhibit.
Side, what I'm trying to get at here is that there's probably a lot of his own blood, sweat, tears, and money in this thing, and if he feels like he's been wronged. He's going after somebody for it. I mean, that's the only thing I can imagine.
That I get, but his spotters should have been telling him all along, look, that was a racing deal. The 68 got in the corner, got a little bit loose.
Or if you're
knocked you around a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, if you're going to race in, the number 2 racing series in the U.S., then...
Well, and not only that, but race in the back of the pack of the number 2 racing series.
You got to take a few punches, I guess.
You're going to be back there with people that are going to make mistakes. No offense to Brendan Brown. Looked like he might have made a mistake. He might have overdrove the exit of the corner.
Sure.
And he got into the 90. And, okay, it's racing. It wasn't like it destroyed his car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they both finished the race, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't.
Then it was like... Oh, why are they fighting? I already
when
forgot.
Tony Stewart goes to try to punch Joey Logano in the face because they have a deal at California a few years ago, I get that.
Yeah.
Because they're racing up front.
Yeah.
In a cup race.
So, is it silly season already? I mean, we already talked about Blaney last week, I believe. Brad Kay squashing retirement rumors and saying that he's open to hear other teams, open to hearing from other teams in 2021. What do you think's like a landing zone?
Did you say Brad? Sorry, I kind of zoned out for a second.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be in the 48, and they're going to change the number to 25.
Wow, calling it right now. Y'all, PETM 234, hit the rewind button in about 6 months from now and see what happens. You might this is either going to be like clairvoyance or it's going to be, just no, never mind, don't rewind it. But wow.
And I think Penske will pull in Reddick into the 2.
Okay. That's a strong move. Strong move to go. Yeah, to go to You're blowing my mind, I guess. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I'm stealing a lot of what Cancian's been texting me. He pays a lot more attention to some of this stuff than I do. But I think he's right. I mean, I'm finally satisfied that I believe he's right. I thought, we had talked about on our show that if I was Rick Hendrick, I would be showing up with a contract at Blaney's house and at Larson's house, with this is how much I'm going to pay you for this many years. But now we know that Blaney's signed. Mm-hmm. And we also know that Brad has been very vague, including saying things like, I'm looking around, I'm taking calls. I'm not making calls, but I'm taking calls.
Right.
And,
that means he's already taken calls.
Yeah, that means he's already taken calls. Yeah. And, as most people probably know that listen to this show, Brad grew up in the Hendrick system once he left his dad's program. Mm-hmm. Like, he was in the junior motorsports program. He made his first 5 or 6 starts in a Hendrick Motorsports number 25 GoDaddy Chevrolet. This to me makes sense. He's 35 now? He's probably got 6 or 8 really good years left. This makes sense because Hendrick is already so young.
Right.
To get a guy that's won 30 races and has a championship to come in and be a leader amongst that crowd.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of the team needing a leader, a cornerstone kind of thing. I think that would be, real strong. And Matthew Todd on the YouTube here says, does William Byron stay? And I think yes.
I don't know why he wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he's on his way up.
Right. I guess they're saying, or maybe even does Hendrick stay with William Byron?
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Right. The investment is there. They've gone forward.
They didn't put Chad Knaus over there because they were going to fire him.
Right. Well, that's a good
Like,
point.
let's be real here, people. Come on, to put some math together. 1 + 1 = 2.
He's staying around. Don't get pissed at Matthew Todd, dude. You know, he's been awesome.
No, I love it. But I like the back and forth. Larson is not going to SHR, not this year. It's not happening because Clint would have to quit, and if Clint was going to quit, he would already said he was going to do it.
Well, recess. Golden Corral continues to be silent on Twitter, so we have to go.
Oh,
not
damn.
Golden Corral.
We got no Brad's
Cracker
wife.
Barrel. Cracker Barrel. I said Golden Corral. I'm sorry, Golden Corral.
So funny.
Golden Corral Twitter. You're cool by me.
Brad's wife likes Golden Corral. By God,
there you go. Oh man. But I don't know if you saw earlier today or yesterday. Mark Richt posted a picture of himself wearing a Georgia Tech fleece.
I heard.
At Georgia
I
Tech.
Heard. 60 the fan talked about it today. They were like, "Why are people pissed? He doesn't coach at Georgia anymore."
I just loved consuming this.
Yeah,
because the Georgia fans who all wanted him out because he's always a bridesmaid, never the bride. They're all pissed because they're now they hold him in some high regard. I don't know what it is, or this is a different fandom speaking about it. But I'll be honest, Georgia Tech fans, I've still got beef. Like he's wearing that, and I'm like,
well, he did a good job of beating Georgia Tech.
Well, yeah, he did a X number and O at Georgia Tech. So.
Yeah, he only lost to us twice,
both at home.
between Miami and Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they were talking on the radio, and it's like they forgot that Mark Richt actually played quarterback at Miami. Yeah, he just happened to be third string behind Bernie Kosar and Jim Kelly, so he didn't ever actually get to start a game.
Names, as it turns out, those are some names. Sherwin, it is time to gas it up. Y'all know where it is. It's Atlanta Motor Speedway, just a few miles south of here. We're going to be there. Got the credentials in. Well, not in. We got to go pick them up, but they're approved.
We do have to pick them up.
Yep.
I got the timing. It's all in the email.
They, for whatever reason, approved 2 yahoos to come in and eat all their roller food on the Quick Trip.
Hey, Quick Trip folds of 500. God bless you, soldiers.
Love it. Sherwin, man, we already talked about it. The snowflake deal. And what Adam was talking about. We have this whole surface thing that, there was like that 2 years ago where it was we're going to be tearing up the track in 2 weeks. Like they had the backhoes ordered, and they told them stand down.
Yes, stand down.
And they hadn't even talked about it in 2 years. I feel like that was 2018. And they didn't even scoff at it last year, and this year ain't nobody talking about it because they're talking about the surface, how crazy it's going to be and everything. So, good on you, AMS. Good on you.
Well, I think Vegas, Chicago, and Fontana have all really played into that because of how well those tracks have come in, and then of course we all know Atlanta's been that track for 23 years now. All y'all were playing around.
It's just
Now your stuff's good.
Good with age.
Our stuff's been that good for 23 years.
Well, Sherwin, I went with the layup last week with Harvick, who Adam picked this week, but Harvick was second place. Chasm picked Bowman at 14th, and Sherwin picked Blaney, who kind of finished, I guess.
Got wrecked out by Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, DFL +1, unfortunately, on the scorecard with 37th place. So it's no make it, take it. That means Sherwin's up this week. Give us your pick.
I know. Give me some Jeopardy here.
Just say Chase and we'll move on.
I don't want to pick him at home. I don't want to do it.
Okay.
I don't want to do it.
Okay.
But I might double down on Ryan Blaney.
Okay. Young Blaney going after it. I think it's a great pick. I think he's got some, I don't know if there's payback, but he's got, not like payback to like Hamlin or whoever else, but like payback in terms of just, I got to get out there and do something, and I think he can do something right there.
Well, he's got that contract in his back pocket now, too. It's time to go fast.
Right.
And he's been fast all year. So, I mean, you don't have to figure out how to go fast.
Well, I'll pick Chase, and we'll move on then.
Okay, there we go. All right.
So one of us got it. That's how it is. Man, I'm excited for the weekend, man. We'll be down there. We'll see everybody down there who wants to hang out.
Yeah, we'll be down there. Hopefully, we'll run into just about everybody that is going to be down there. Certainly, we'll be at the Tweet Up.
That's right.
And we'll be wandering around the press box and the media center and making a general nuisance of the entire process without making enough of a nuisance so we don't get invited back.
Right.
Hopefully we'll run into some of the Hooters folks down there. Who knows on that? But yeah,
it's going to be a great weekend.
Maybe we'll get to shake Adam Alexander's hand.
That's right. Well, y'all, let's start shutting her down. Can't wait to say there's a lot of hands we got to shake and then immediately slather on the hand sanitizer, evidently. But,
well, evidently we're supposed to wash our hands, not use the sanitizer.
Oh, is that
apparently
right?
The washing,
I've been doing it wrong, but I already used the sanitizer. What do I do?
Apparently the washing is more important than actually using sanitizer.
Okay, well, the more you know. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the PTM Podcast, as always, on the Twitter handle at PTM Podcast, PTMPodcast.com. And as always, Tailgate Mayor, Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Mayor.
And obviously we're at PTM Podcast on the Twitter and on the Instagram. And I'm Andrew L. Sherwin on the Instagram and Pregame Engineer on the Twitters.
Y'all, we are looking forward to a great weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, racing, having fun. And we'll talk to y'all next week, tell you all about it.
Oh, CJ Wooliver next week.
Sweet. CJ. That's a wrap.
Yeah, we're probably overdue for having Sydney on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We need to have Sydney and have her bring Blaney.
Which she might be able to do.
Right. That's I was being somewhat realistic on this. And a lot of joking. But maybe.
But maybe.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I'm doing
actually.
All
she might. Yeah, I don't want to abuse that relationship, but she's mentioned it before. She mentioned it without me even asking.
Right. Yeah, this is your idea.
Yeah, that's a possibility, or at least have her on a show and then maybe call in for 10 or 15 minutes or something.
Something like that, or just get them drunk and have them.
We could definitely get them drunk. That's a skill set.
Well, I'm in for her to do it.
Oh,
do it for us.
Oh, well, I've been drunk at her house with her parents.
Oh,
man. That's happened.
Oh, that's funny.
In case y'all didn't know.
Y'all, if we get the road department from around redo all the tracks, they will all they'll all run like Atlanta. No kidding. Y'all, how about Adam? Adam, super cool dude.
Wow, that was you don't really like to anticipate how good or whatever a guest would be, but he was awesome, man.
You know what? It's like he does this for a living.
Right? Talks on the radio.
Yeah. What's cool to me, too, is that is exactly what I just said, too, though. He does this for a living, and yet, if you ask me to do some computer crap after work, I'll give you the middle finger, right? I'm no, I'm done. I'm working software for a living. I'm done doing software, although here I am, messing with software, but that's not developing it and timeline and blah, 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 blah.
Well, I
ain't dealing with that.
Your hobby.
So right.
You're choosing to do it.
Exactly. But yeah, that's really cool for him to talk about NASCAR all
He
day.
didn't choose to be on our podcast. He just said he would.
Well, I guess that's his choice. But yeah, for him to then turn around and I've been talking NASCAR all day. Let's talk some NASCAR.
Right
on, brother.
Yeah, I think they do all our TV stuff at 2:00 in the afternoon. So it can get edited before they air at 5 or whatever. And he agreed to come on and do our stuff too. And you know, that's we say this every week, and it's going to turn into a broken record. But the reason why this sport is so much fun, y'all, is because people say yes. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why we're able to bring y'all guests the way we are is because people say yes. Mm-hmm. And without them, we wouldn't be able to do it. And
it'd just be us, a couple of idiots, just sitting here talking. The first 20 episodes or so. But
right, it's not the worst thing in the world to listen to because you're probably gonna laugh, probably gonna learn something. But it's always fun to bring you somebody that matters.
Yeah.
Okay, who'd you have on this week? The guy that hosts the daily NASCAR on Fox show, that guy was on our show today.
He's all right. Speaking of NASCAR on Fox, at NASCAR on Fox himself will be here next week. That's cool.
That's true.
Yeah. Is he going to be in Atlanta?
Yes.
Sweet. We'll see him.
Oh, yeah.
He'll be running at 100 miles an hour. He will come to a complete stop. Fellas, what's up? And then take off running
again. Then just haul ass.
Yeah. I love it.
When he's at the racetrack, he's busier than a two-peckered Peter, or pup, rather. He's just got too much going on.
Oh, man. Well, y'all, we're going to shut this thing down and get this thing uploaded, and should be on all the places shortly. So get your Goog, get your Apple, and get to listening. So,
yeah, even Stitcher now, y'all.
Stitcher, we're on all the stuff. So
Rusty hooked that up.
That's right.
Last week.
Appreciate y'all joining in.
Week before last.
Week before last. I think.
Week before last.
We'll talk to you next time. See ya.
See ya.